This is the only video you need to understand what does it take to implement the automation on deployment of machine learning models. So for more such content, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's get started. I'll take you through a quick hands-on as how you can automatically deploy the machine learning models. And if you want to deploy those models in an automatic manner, I'll say this is the session that you need. When you think about the machine learning project, a machine learning project will have a data set. I'll just mention it in a diagram so that you'll have a idea. Let's say this is my data, and we'll have a configuration file, and then we'll also have a training script. I'll name it this. I'll say data set, config, and ML code. So this is what we have got, and by combining these, we are going to generate a trained model. So this, I'll call this as a trained machine learning model. Now, in order to track the data set, so we have a tool, let's say we have a DVC tool to give you an example, and to track the configuration ML code, we'll be making use of the SEM tool. It can be Git or Bitbucket or any such tool. The intention is we should be able to track it. Now, with the combination of our code, configuration, and data set, we have got a model. Now, this model basically has the information about the data set that we are working with. Okay, that's a very simple way of what exactly this trained model is. Now, once we have this trained model with us, okay, we want to deploy it. Now, deploying is nothing but getting this trained model, placing it in a server so that I can send in the new data to represent the new data. I'll just mention it like this. So I'll be sending my input data to my trained model, and this is going to generate the prediction. So this is going to generate the prediction. So this is what the deployment is all about. It's about ensuring that the model is accessible so that it can get the new data. It can be from the users or it can be the end application. And then we'll be able to generate the prediction. And that's what the deployment of a machine learning is all about. So I just want to give you a quick recap as about this because it's very important. Let's say if there is any changes in the data set, then this is going to generate the new trained model. Let's say if there's any changes in the configuration of how the model is being trained, this is going to generate a new model. Let's say if there's any changes in the approach in which I have used for training the model, and that's going to generate a new trained model. So for each and every changes, we will be having an individual unique model based on that setting because the model that we have got, it's a combination of data set, configuration, and ML code. Now, when you're working in the enterprise project or when you're working in any production environment, we have to ensure that all these are in sync. Let's say if I update the data set, that's going to result in a new trained model. Now, when a new trained model happens, we should be able to deploy that new trained model automatically so that the organizations can work in a reliable manner and end users will be able to experience the latest model and have an uninterrupted experience. Now, in order to deploy the models automatically, that's what we call it as automatic model deployment. Here, I'll give you a quick demo of this implementation, that is the automatic model deployment. And for the demonstration purpose, there's already a project which I had created earlier for a different course. I'll show you the same. This will give you an idea about what exactly is this automatic model deployment. Now, I've kept the architecture very simple. If I want to describe this architecture that I've got, it's yeah, let me open this. It's a simple architecture where I have placed my training file, that is the train model file, in my S3 bucket, and we have placed our ML code in our GitHub. And we have created a code pipeline in our AWS where the connection between the GitHub and code pipeline has been already established. That means whenever I change any source code, that's going to trigger the pipeline. Okay, that's going to trigger the pipeline. Now, once the pipeline has been triggered, we are going to perform the automated testing to see whether the application is working as per our expectation. It can be as simple as running the test and creating the Docker image for the machine learning code that we have built during the build phase, and then running the basic test with that built container. If it's working fine, then we'll push it to the Elastic Container Registry. Okay, now once it's pushed to the Elastic Container Registry, we'll pick the latest image. We are going to deploy it to a compute instance. Now in this demonstration, I'll show you as we'll be deploying it to an EC2 instance. And that's the demonstration that I'll be showing you. So now that you are clear with this architecture, I'll show you the settings as how you can actually do this. It's a very interesting one, guys. Here, for the demonstration purpose, I'll show you this code pipeline. So code pipeline is a service that we have got for performing the continuous releases. And if I take you this code pipeline, you can see that we have a source stage. Now in this source stage, we have got the source code and the train model file. Our train model file is in S3 bucket, and we have a source code that has been connected from our GitHub repository. Then whenever any change would happen, this change can be in my S3 bucket or this change can be in my source code. Now this is going to trigger the build. And in this build, we are going to perform the activity of the building the Docker image. And once it is built, we are going to push to the Docker, that is the Elastic Container Registry of AWS. And then we'll do the testing. And once that is done, we are going to push the artifacts to the next stage in the deploy, where we are going to deploy the application to our EC2 instances. So let's take this automation. I have got my public IPv4 address, and there's an application that's already running in the port of 8002. So you can see that welcome to Fast API application. Now I'll go ahead and modify in this repository just for the demonstration purpose. I'm going to mention as Fast API application v2. So I've done some changes in my Fast API application, and we are going to push the changes to our GitHub repository. So let me just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to push the changes to my repository. And once I've pushed the changes, I'll come to this code pipeline screen. You'll be seeing that, see, a new pipeline has been triggered. Okay, the commit message that I mentioned earlier was test, and you can see the same right here. And this has triggered the build. Okay, now let's wait for a minute and we'll be able to see the various build stages. Okay, now it has started the build. I'll click on view details. And from here, you can actually view various things that's happening in the backend. So you can see the logs. Okay, so you can see that currently what we are doing over here in this build is we are installing the necessary libraries in this build environment that we are getting from AWS. And once we prepare this environment, the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to build a Docker image. So if you look at it, I'm logging into the ECR because that's where my public image that I'm using as a base image. And then I'm performing the login to my public ECR. And once I've logged in, I'm also logging into my personal ECR as well. That is the one that is belonging to my account. And this is the repository. So here, in order to create the model, so as per the architecture that I've defined earlier, I'll also have to consider the train model file that I have in my S3 bucket. So I'll consider those. I'll download the data from the S3 bucket, and then we are performing the build. So I'm building my Docker image. Then once this is built, see, this is making use of the Docker file and setting up the everything. And once this is built, Okay, I'm going ahead and performing the test. So there are tests that I have created inside that repository where we are performing the simple test, whether it's working or not. That is the fast API application with the code. So now it is performing the test. Okay, so let's see. It says one failed, two passed. That means for some reason it got failed. Now this is a good thing, guys. Okay, the reason it got failed because in one of the tests that I have created, I'm actually checking the welcome message, whether it is equal to welcome to fast API application. But just now, as per the changes that we have done, if you take a look into this main.py file, I've added a new thing, right? So let me bring up the correct repository. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, in the in the test, I'm checking whether we have got welcome to fast API application. But as per the latest changes, we have just added V2. Now, this is the test that got failed. That means we can configure the test, and this is like a negative test that has been done. We can say the test got failed, and then it is just proceeding because we did not set any other messages. Okay, like we did not set the, I'll say, the other steps. Let's wait. Okay, let's take a look into the various logs and what would be the final one. See, once that is done, so we are going ahead and pushing. So here in this case, we can see that. Okay, let me just revalidate what is it has happening. It's performing the build. See, what has happened was it got failed. Now it is performing the auto retry. So just to see whether it's an one-time issue or not, it is performing the auto retry and it is going to fail. So it's like a negative testing that we have done. So since the test failed, it is not going to perform the deployment. I'll do one thing. I'll just modify my test case too so that the test case gets passed. Okay, now I'll commit again. Now this time the pipeline will be executed. So I'll push the changes, and once it's done, this is going to trigger the pipeline again. This is going to trigger a new pipeline execution for us. This is the latest pipeline with commit message. Now it's performing the build. This is the old retry, so we don't have to worry. Now a new build is going to start for this execution. See, we have a queued execution. Okay, if you take a look at it, about the previous execution, see it got failed. So now it's executing the second version, that is the updated test case. Now this should be able to perform the build successfully because we have modified the code so that even the test case can be passed. In the meantime, I'm going to launch my code build as well so that we can check the build history over there too. So this is the current build that is being executed. We can see the logs that are being populated. It's downloading, it's testing the requirement. And this time the 3 tests have been passed. That's a good thing. Then it's pushing the image to my ECR. And finally it says pushed. And once it is pushed, we are going to move to the deploy stage where we are going to deploy this updated code to our EC2 instance. See, it's almost done. Yeah, status is succeeded. Now we'll come back to our pipeline. Let's have a check. See, now it is in the deploy stage. Let's have a look into the deploy status. This is the new deployment that has been created. And let's see whether the deployment succeeded. So it is in progress. Let's have a look into the events of these deployments. So we are now in the application start. Okay. Now it's done. So let me refresh my application, which is running on EC2. I'll just refresh this page. See, now we have it as V2. So this is a quick idea and the demonstration about how you can automatically deploy the machine learning models using the automation. All right, guys. So this was about the importance of automatic model deployment and how we can actually do it from the practical standpoint. I hope you had fun learning in this video. So folks, if you want to join live from the next session, just check out the link that is provided in the description. Join our community and I can't wait to help you in your MLOps and generative AI journey. Take care guys and I'll see you next time.